6 schoolboys stranded on this remote island, but then this happened. Tonight, we have a tale of cooperation, optimism, and finally, survival in the face of hardship. Even though it happened more than 50 years ago, it made headlines when it was uncovered last year. It tells the story of a group of young people who spent more than 15 months stuck on a desolate island. It could make you think of William Golding's renowned book, Lord of the Flies. But as you'll see, the conclusion of this real-life event couldn't have been more unlike. Sione Ulufonua Fataua is 73 years old, but the active chief pastor for the Church of Tonga and its 16 congregations in the United States says he will never retire because the debt he owes to God is too large. Sione was 18 when he and 5 restless companions from St. Andrew's Anglican boarding school in Tonga borrowed a boat in June 1965, thinking they might sail to New Zealand for a better life. But their pipe dream was dashed by a storm on their first night at sea. The boat was completely messed up with no rudder, no sails, and we drifted for 8 days with no food, no rain to drink. Sione writes in this week's edition of People, "We prayed because we knew only God could save us. It was a wonder that the guys, aged 13 to 18, survived 8 days at sea. But what happened after their shattered ship smashed into the rocks of the isolated island of Ata in the South Pacific was even more incredible, especially for readers of William Golding's 1954 classic, Lord of the Flies. Unlike the scenario of lads and a desolate island turning on each other in that famous novel, Sione and his companions made a vow on their first day to live on the island exactly as they had been reared in their separate homes spread over the tiny islands of Tonga. We all came from close and impoverished households where everything you receive, you share," Sione adds, revealing a precise system that lads devised for producing food, managing a perpetual fire, which never went out in 15 months, exercising, and resolving conflicts. The nights around the fire were reserved for voicing complaints. If somebody didn't like something, they talked about it, and we said sorry, and then we prayed. And everything was fine, recounts Sione, one of the 2 eldest boys who took on a leadership position. If someone was very angry, say if I planned something and they didn't do it, you walk away for a few hours, stare at the ocean and clear your head. They were rescued in September 1966 when a fishing boat commanded by Australian Peter Warner approached close enough to hear the youngsters screaming. Warner recalls now, reflecting on the story he heard after all 6 lads swam out to his boat on that day, nude and with long hair, they built a miniature society. The knowledge was astounding for such young individuals. The boys' experience was mentioned briefly in Warner's 2016 memoir, Ocean of Light, 30 Years in Tonga and the Pacific, but it wasn't widely publicized until Dutch historian Rutger Bregman discovered a tiny mention of the Tongan boys' adventure in an obscure old newspaper clip. Bregman was seeking for a real-life Lord of the Flies for his latest book, Humankind. For decades, we've been giving ourselves pessimistic stories about mankind, Bregman tells People. A more optimistic perspective of human nature is just what we require right now. We can't afford to be cynical these days. The problems are too great. Sione is still close to one of the boys, Luke Wikoso, who moved to the United States after retiring as the Pacific heavyweight boxing champion. He moved in with Sione 2 years ago in Oakland, California. "I usually say that God kept me alive. Therefore, I'll work for him for the rest of my life," Sione says of his retirement from managing 16 congregations and leading services on his own. In a Zoom chat with Warner, Bregman, and the only 2 other castaways still alive, Tevita Siola's Mano Totau, he and Luke just agreed to grant Hollywood company, New Regency, the film rights to their story. "If people today had the thinking of the 6 Tongan castaways, if we all assist each other, not to be greedy, and care for each other, we can all survive what is occurring in the world," adds Sione, who claims he waited 54 years for the story to become popular. Well, that's all for today. In case you enjoyed today's video, kindly like and subscribe to the channel.